Hi, this is Nahid Kazaza, and welcome to the Improving Stressful Relationships series. Today I'm going to address a specific question that came through from one of our participants. As we walk through the example, you'll see our relationship tools in action, and I'm sure you'll resonate with at least some of what she's going through. Here's the question. Hi, Nahid. I'm having a hard time figuring out where I stand with my boss. Ever since we started telecommuting, my communication with her has been mostly task-oriented, with emails or texts around our various projects. We'll often do virtual meetings as well, but they don't allow me that casual, in-person interaction time I used to get during the day. I remember when I was at the office, every time I felt a little insecure, I could manage to bump into her in the kitchen or the halls and just have a casual, superficial conversation. It might not have seemed like anything on the surface, but that energy between us gave me the reassurance that if she had a problem with anything I was doing, she'd let me know. Now I don't have that, and I don't have anything like that to sort of monitor the vibes between us. This scares me, especially when we might have layoffs. I'm wondering if there's a way I can find out where I stand with her without coming across as annoying and needy. So let's start by taking a look at our loving approach model. You're going to eventually reach out to your boss for a conversation around this issue, but especially since you're feeling vulnerable and you don't want to come across as overly needy, it's best to do the work of lowering your stress and owning your part, and maybe even asking her a few questions before figuring out what to actually do to change the situation. Let's look at our dynamics of a reaction model. In this case, the boss's behavior is having a negative impact on you. The behavior is only interacting with you around tasks and not having casual personal interactions with you. These casual interactions were what helped you feel confident that she liked you, or confident in your position, or reassured that she believed you were doing a good job. Because your interactions have changed and you're feeling a little insecure, the story you have in your head is that you no longer know where you stand. And it's probably coupled with a fear that she might not be happy with you or your work. Let's take ownership here that what's making you feel bad is not her actual behavior, it's your story about her behavior. In fact, if you think about it, her behavior likely hasn't changed at all, I'm guessing. Before, her personal interactions with you happened when she happened to run into you. And when you were in the office together, you were able to arrange to run into her whenever you were feeling insecure. So she didn't proactively do that. What's changed is not actually her, but your ability to casually arrange to run into her. So, to lower your stress about this situation, it's helpful to recognize that from her perspective, she probably isn't doing anything differently. In which case, if she was never unhappy with your performance before, she likely isn't unhappy with your performance now. If we look at our boundaries model, we can see that to a certain extent, you're making your feelings of confidence contingent on her approval. In a way, that's making her responsible for your feelings. That doesn't make your fears invalid, but it's important to make sure the words in your head are not, she's making me feel anxious or insecure, but instead, I'm feeling anxious and secure in this situation. Now let's look at our needs model. Your anxiety is a sign that a hole has popped open in your needs pyramid. Ask yourself what that need is. From the way the question is worded, I'm guessing that there may be a couple of unmet needs here. One is safety, which is why the anxiety is so high. In this day and age, usually job security or financial security is where most of our safety needs play out. A way to test this is to ask yourself, if I knew my job was completely safe, would I feel differently? From the wording of this question, and from people I've coached in similar situations, I'm guessing there's probably a little more to it than that. It sounds like there's also a big unmet need here for reassurance or of approval. So again, you can test yourself and ask, if I knew 100% that my boss completely approved of me and my work and my job was safe, how would I feel? And if in imagining that scenario you feel better, then you have a pretty good handle that these are the unmet needs. But now a good question, how do we get the needs met? This is where it's really good to have an example. Your needs are your responsibility. And that brings up a good question. How might I feel approved of and reassured and financially safe without my boss giving those things to me? This is such an important question because you'll never have clean boundaries if you make one other person responsible for meeting your needs. And remember, I said in a prior video that these kinds of issues tend to come up mostly in boss-employee and parent-child relationships. So yes, your boss has a lot of power when it comes to whether or not you keep your job. But if you think very carefully about it, you'll realize that neither your financial security nor your feelings of confidence in your work should be coming from your boss. They really should be coming from you. When it comes to financial security, how could you get that? Well, you can have contingency plans. If I get laid off, this is how I'll handle it. In the longer term, you can save 4 to 6 months of expenses so that you'd have time to find a new job if you lost your current one. Or you could think about things you could do quickly to bring in an income or save money, like get a side gig or temporarily move in with a friend. Having a contingency plan is like a safety net. It doesn't guarantee that you won't lose your job, but nothing guarantees that. What it does is take ownership back of your safety needs. And now you're taking responsibility for having that financial security and not depending on things you can't control, like whether or not your company has layoffs. Let's take the need for approval. One of the things I have people do when they feel hungry for approval and validation from others is to pay attention to their self-talk. When you complete a project, do you tell yourself it was a job well done or that you did your best? If you really believe you put in a good effort, then usually you can turn it in with a good conscience and learn from any feedback you get. But if you don't feel sure about the quality of your work unless someone outside of yourself validates you, then your need for validation and approval will continue to feel insatiable. Your job is to change your self-talk to the point where you feel good enough with the effort you're putting in, and you welcome any feedback, good and bad, because everything you do, you expect to need to learn from and improve. There's something we call a growth mindset that helps with this, and there's a great video on this by Dr. Heidi Grant Halverson, a social psychologist. I highly encourage you to watch it. The gist of it is that if you have the perspective that you're always learning and growing, and everything you do is a step towards ongoing mastery, and you never expect yourself to do things perfectly, you won't have as much anxiety around your work, and you won't feel as sensitive or defensive when others aren't happy with your work. And you'll take feedback and apply it and keep working on improving, which ultimately makes you a much higher performer than those who expect themselves to be perfect at the outset. Her YouTube video is called The Incredible Benefits of a Get Better Mindset. So now, you've done the internal work of owning your part of the problem and getting some clarity on your needs. Now comes the time to talk. Keep in mind that you don't have to have a perfect conversation or get a perfect result. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on yourself. The idea is to explore whether or not there are ways for you to have some kind of casual interactions with your boss on a regular basis, because you know that you've successfully used those in the past to feel better. And notice that even the way I'm saying it now is clean. Notice that I'm saying you are using the conversations with your boss to help yourself feel better. It's not that your boss is making you feel better, but you're using that conversation to help yourself feel better. This gives you more power. She has the right to say yes or no or to think things over. But now that you've gone through the process of thinking about how to get your needs met, you'll still be able to get what you need regardless of how she responds. So here are a couple examples. You could just throw out a seed to feel her out by saying it feels a little weird with all of us working virtual. I realize I got a lot out of our casual conversations from just running into each other in the hall. Or you could ask a little more directly, since we aren't seeing each other as much, would you be willing to have a somewhat regular check-in call? I realized that I used our casual, non-structured interactions to almost absorb or sense whether I was on the right track with things. It doesn't matter if these conversations go right or wrong. This is just one part of what you're doing to make yourself feel better and get your needs met. So now, since none of us will have time later, I'm going to ask you to open your email program now and write me an email. My address is here on the screen, nahid@coachnahid.com, and you can make the subject relationship class. And then I'm only asking you a couple of questions. I'd like to know what was the most valuable thing you got out of the class today, or if you have any further questions about it. And then secondly, I'd love to hear a relationship challenge that you're currently facing, or a question or a topic that you'd like to see me cover in an upcoming class. I create these videos from the questions that come to me. If you enjoyed this class, you're welcome to share it with anyone you'd like. In fact, I'd love the exposure, so please feel free to post it on social media and share what you loved about it. If you're watching the video because someone sent you the link and you're not yet on my email list, simply go to coachnahid.com and opt in when invited. That way you'll get the whole series of classes sent to you, and you'll also get invitations to our live Q&A sessions. Finally, if you'd like coaching or more in-depth support when it comes to putting these tools and techniques into action, feel free to request a coaching consultation. We work with people individually, in small groups, and in organizations, so there's sure to be a format that works for you. Thanks for participating, and don't forget to send that email so I can be sure to address your specific issues. Take care and see you next time.